Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin, and I'm alone this week. I don't have Craig or Dana with me. So this time I'm going to be talking about a rather obscure monster movie because I love all the kind of big monster movies where they run around and destroy things. I'm talking about Gorgo. I know you guys can't see this, but I'm holding the DVD right in my hand. Gorgo came out in 1961. It's directed by Eugene Laurie, the fella who did... I just had it right in front of me. He did, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. He did The Giant Behemoth, The Colossus of New York. He did a whole lot of creature movies in the 50s. So it was only fitting that he would helm Gorgo, which is a British-made movie that came out in 1961. A clear kind of ripoff of Godzilla. But it predates Gamera, which is kind of interesting and cool. The special effects were done by Tom Howard, a guy who won 2 Academy Awards for one movie called Blithe Spirit and Tom Thumb. And he also worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey with Stanley Kubrick. So this guy has an interesting filmography. So, Gorgo, what did I think about it? Gorgo is an okay monster movie, I guess. It certainly leaves a lot to be desired, I felt like. I just watched it. I watched it about 2 weeks ago, I think, and when it came time for me to do this review, I just couldn't remember anything about the movie. And I think that's a big problem, is that it is ultimately a forgettable movie. Even some of the bad ones, I think the original Gamera movie is kind of bad. But even I can remember stuff from that movie. I distinctly remember their plan. I think it was called Plan Z. I saw this 2 years ago. Almost 3. And they had this plan at the end to get rid of Gamera by putting him in this giant rocket ship and just send him to space. I remember some of Varan that came out in 1958. He's like a giant squirrel. And there's like some kind of connection with butterflies and they blow him up from the inside. I remember very little. But with Gorgo, I was having trouble remembering some of the stuff that happened. And essentially, there's this giant sea earthquake that awakens Gorgo, who's this reptilian-looking thing. I'll show a picture. His design is okay-ish. He has, like, frilled ears. He looks like a dorsal plateless Godzilla with red eyes, and he has really huge hands and feet. But let's go back to the movie. Let me read you the description on the DVD, because I'm having trouble remembering. A salvage vessel is nearly sunk off the Irish coast by an undersea earthquake, which I just mentioned. A few nights later, a walking sea monster tangles with the fishing boats and enters a small town. Fishermen from England catch the 60-foot-tall deep-sea creature. The monster is taken to London for a circus, and with great shock, they find out that the creature is really just a baby. Yes, and then essentially after that, I'm no longer reading the description, the mother comes up and then off the coast of Ireland, and she destroys that town where they found baby Gorgo. I think the mom's name is Orga in the movie. I don't remember off the top of my head. But she runs around, she destroys everything in her path and levels London to get to her baby, because once they capture Gorgo, they're trying to like profit off of it, and they have like these giant circus things, and they keep Gorgo in this giant like cage. And then there's like this kid that joins them. I think, well, before I get to the human characters, Mama Gorgo destroys everything and then picks up little Gorgo, and then the movie ends with them just going out to sea with this voiceover. So Gorgo, I think there really isn't any human drama in the movie. It's all very stock characters. There's 2 main guys, and then there's a little kid that joins their little journey when they're sending Gorgo to England, because they pick up Gorgo in Ireland, and then they go to England so they can study and then have this giant thing around Gorgo. There really isn't anything to these characters. There's no arc. They're just there. They're like pawns. They're there to move the scenes along. They don't have any chemistry with each other. I mean, I guess this could be a testament to acting back then too, but they're not giving anything to do. They're just there to move the scenes along. And then there's always it cut back between, the military doing their stuff. And I think, despite me saying that there isn't a lot to the human characters, I will say that the movie is not boring. It moves fairly. It's paced fairly well. It moves along well. It's only 77 minutes, so it's not a long watch at all. It never felt like it dragged at any point. Gorgo was shown within 20 minutes for the first time in the movie, like destroying stuff. They show him earlier on when they go underwater to see, and then one of the main characters see Gorgo. But he's shown, fairly throughout, and there's a good amount of destruction too in the movie. I guess if you compare Gorgo to Godzilla, the original one, you'll find that the human drama is entirely lacking. Because at least in the original Godzilla movie, Dr. Serizawa was struggling with trying to show or use his weapon because he knows that no good will ever come of his weapon, and he is pained that he knows knowledge, and he even says something along the lines of, even if I destroy all my notes, I will still remember the atrocity I created and how to create it. So at the end, he sacrifices himself so that the burden of that weapon will never ever happen. And this movie doesn't have any kind of drama at all, really. I mean, I haven't watched Beast 20,000 Fathoms, so I don't know if that's just how the standard was for some of those monster movies back then, where it's just move from one scene to one scene. I couldn't even tell you. I remember there was I don't even know if there was actually some drama in Rodan. I haven't seen that in a couple of years. But I guess also let's go back to Gorgo. I talked about how the design of Gorgo leaves a lot to be desired. It's pretty standard, and I wish there was some kind of signature attack that makes Gorgo stand out from everybody else. Like, Godzilla has the atomic breath. Rodan can fly. Remember, that was in 1956. Rodan could fly. He would create, when he'd fly by something, he'd destroy things with the sonic waves. Mothra had offsprings, and they could shoot things. I don't know if this came out before Mothra. I want to say it did, because it says it was released in March 29th, 1961. And obviously Gamera came after, but Gamera could breathe fire and he could fly like a saucer, very ridiculously. But they still had signature moves or signature things that would make them stand out from each other. Gorgo is just I know he is a ripoff of Godzilla, but it just feels very vanilla. It's very basic. Why not give Gorgo some kind of cool attack? Maybe, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe Gorgo can jump really high. It has some kind of ability. Maybe it doesn't have to breathe fire. Maybe Gorgo could shoot fireballs from his hands. Any kind of ability to make him stand out from all the other monsters, because it's all very stock. As I said earlier, the special effects are really great. They use a lot of blue screen, and some of the blue screen was a little wonky in some scenes, especially the scenes where it shows the main characters about to dive. This is early on in the movie. They're about to dive in the water, and you could see that the blue screen is reflecting off of their diving gear. Because they're so shiny, you could see the reflection off of that, and then it would comp out the tank. So, but still, nonetheless, a lot of great special effects. The way they were able to incorporate live action with miniature, I thought was really great. And again, they have the Tom Howard guy who won 2 Academy Awards. He would later do 2001: A Space Odyssey, so this guy was definitely more than capable of handling the special effects. For 1961, listen, it's about as good as it would get. It's great. I think it was great. The movie itself is fine. Like I said, it's paced very well. They have this one scene where they use a lot of stock footage of military ships shooting, I guess, depth charges. So they intercut that with the Mama Gorgon. And again, movie's not boring. I guess this gets to the point of what is the theme, because we know how Godzilla, the original one, is an allegory for nuclear weaponry and the horrors of it. So maybe this one's theme is messing with Mother Nature and a mother's wrath, because they take baby Gorgo and then Mama Gorgo has to come out and destroy everything to get baby Gorgo. The theme isn't really clear, but I'm assuming it's something like that. They never properly have those breadcrumbs to visually show you the theme. As with any theme with the movie, you can visually see it, you can understand, but in this movie they don't have that. And I think that's a shame. That's a real shame, because everything else with the movie is just so stock, and it feels like this was a template of a movie, and they really should have just spent more time trying to make it more unique and more interesting. Like, I'm glad for its time that this movie had nothing to do with nuclear horrors and nuclear weaponry like some of the other Godzillas and those other Japanese movies. Usually those other ones were the hubris of mankind, and I guess maybe this has some of that, but there's none of those breadcrumbs that would tell you that that's what the theme of the movie was. Let's do a fun thing. Let me look up on Google what they say the theme of Gorgo is. What is movie Gorgo about? Yeah, that's just a plot synopsis. So yeah, essentially, I guess you just don't mess with mothers because they will come back and they'll destroy everything to get their baby, so don't do that. Again, the rampaging was okay at the end. It's not nearly as, let's say, horrifying as Godzilla, because in the original Godzilla movie, it's grim when he's destroying everything. The humanity is hopeless, and he's just utterly destroying things. But in this one, you can understand why the mother is doing what she's doing. So there's that weird conflicting tone, because in Godzilla, it was more of revenge and the allegory of the horrors of nuclear weapons being used. And the humans are utterly defenseless against Godzilla. I mean, I guess in this one too, they couldn't stop Gorgo, but it just doesn't have that extra layer that makes a movie like the original Godzilla so special. This one is very stock, and I don't want to make it sound like I hate it. I think it's an okay movie. If I were to give it a rating, I would say maybe a 6 out of 10. It's a forgettable but fun monster movie, and I think that if you are a fan of monster movies and you like watching them, I think you should check it out. I heard about it through YouTube. I think I've always known about it kind of, but I finally decided to get the DVD and watch it. It's not boring. It's a fun kind of watch. You just wish there was more to it. And I wish there was just more destruction, because there's really only 2 to 3 scenes of destruction in the beginning. Baby Gorgo comes out, kind of messes around. He's turned away by flames and then fire arrows. And then when Mama Gorgo comes out, she destroys the little town in Ireland, and then the Navy and the Army attacks her. And then there's that one giant scene at the end. I just wish there was more destruction. Maybe really show how destructive, maybe really show how far a mother would go to protect their child. I think that's the breadcrumbs of a theme where Mama Gorgo just destroys everything to rescue her helpless child that humans are trying to profit off of. But again, this movie doesn't delve too far into that. And on the Wikipedia page, it says this: it's presumably influenced several Japanese monster movie productions, such as, some of them I don't know, but it has Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and in that one, those themes are more like, you could easily get those themes better in that movie than this one. And in that movie, the humans aren't profiting off of little Godzilla or baby Godzilla. They just take little Godzilla baby Godzilla, then he hatches, and then that's when Godzilla comes around and wants a kid. So a little different in those movies, but yeah, I wish there was more to this movie. It's not bad by any means. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I think, like I said, if you are interested in giant monster movies, I think it's worth a check out. It's part of history, and maybe some way down the road, they could revive Gorgo and maybe give Gorgo more nuance and make Gorgo stick out more. But it's a very standard movie. It's a forgettable but fun monster movie. And I don't have much else to say. Yeah, check out Gorgo. This is a short episode because, again, I'm by myself, but I thought it'd be fun to talk about monster movies. So maybe if I'm alone again, I could talk about another one. Maybe another Japanese one. But with all of that being said, this has been the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin, and we will see you next week, hopefully with everyone back.